r/MaliciousCompliance SIL laughed when husband cheated, so I got her disowned. I found the hotel receipt tucked inside my husband's gym bag like a ticking bomb waiting to explode my entire world. The Marriott downtown. Room 412. 2 nights last week when Marcus told me he was visiting his sick aunt in Portland. My hands shook as I stared at the crumpled paper, the room service charges for 2 people glaring back at me like neon signs screaming affair. 3 years of marriage. 3 years of me making his favorite lasagna every Sunday, supporting his career changes, and believing every single lie that fell from his lips. The worst part? I'd actually called that hotel in Portland to send flowers to his sick aunt and they'd never heard of any Marcus Chin. I sat on our bedroom floor, still in my scrubs from my nursing shift, surrounded by the evidence I'd been too naive to see before. Restaurant charges in neighborhoods he claimed he'd never been to. Mysterious phone calls that ended the moment I walked into the room. The sudden need for overtime that never showed up on his paychecks. But I needed confirmation. I needed to hear it from someone who would tell me the truth. That's when I made my first mistake. I called Stephanie. My sister-in-law picked up on the second ring, her voice sickeningly sweet like always. Oh hey, sister. What's up? Steph, I need to ask you something, and I need you to be honest with me. My voice cracked. Is Marcus cheating on me? The silence stretched for exactly 3 seconds. Then she started laughing. Not a nervous giggle or an uncomfortable chuckle. Full-blown, gasping for air laughter that made my blood run cold. Oh my god, she wheezed between fits. You actually figured it out. I was wondering how long it would take. Jessica and I had a bet going. She thought you'd catch on by Christmas, but I said Easter at the earliest. Looks like Jess wins $50. I felt like someone had punched me in the stomach. You knew? Honey, everyone knows. Marcus has been screwing that little blonde from his office for like 8 months now. Sarah? Shannon? Something with an S. She's got this cute little apartment downtown where they... 8 months? The words came out as a whisper. Oh, don't sound so shocked. Marcus has needs, you know? You're always working those crazy hospital shifts, and guys like my brother, well, they need attention. It's not really his fault. My grief was rapidly transforming into something much more dangerous. And you didn't think to tell me? Stephanie's voice turned condescending, like she was explaining something to a particularly slow child. Listen, sweetie, family always comes first. I would never betray my brother like that. Besides, you're kind of naive about these things, aren't you? Maybe if you paid more attention to your husband instead of playing nurse all day, this wouldn't have happened. The rage building in my chest felt volcanic. But she wasn't done. Look, if you want to stay part of this family, you're going to have to get used to how things work around here. Men will be men. You can either accept it and enjoy the nice life Marcus provides, or you can throw a tantrum and lose everything. Your choice. I hung up without saying goodbye, my hands trembling with fury. Stephanie thought she knew everything about keeping family secrets. She thought she was untouchable, protected by that precious family loyalty she kept throwing in my face. What she didn't know was that I'd been keeping some of her secrets too. And I was done being the naive little sister-in-law who stayed quiet. I spent the next hour pacing our living room, Stephanie's cruel laughter echoing in my head like a broken record. Every time I replayed her words, my anger burned hotter. You're kind of naive about these things, aren't you? The condescending tone made my skin crawl. But then Marcus walked through the front door, and everything crystallized. He strolled in at 9:30 p.m., whistling some tune under his breath, his hair still damp from what was obviously a post-affair shower. He had the audacity to kiss my forehead like nothing had happened. Hey babe, sorry I'm late. Got caught up at work. The lie rolled off his tongue so easily it was almost impressive. Did you eat? I could make us some. How's your aunt doing? I interrupted, my voice eerily calm. He didn't even flinch. Oh, much better. Thanks for asking. The doctors think she'll make a full recovery. That's funny, because the Portland Marriott called. You left your watch in room 412. The color drained from his face. For a moment, he looked like he might try to explain, maybe even apologize. Instead, his expression hardened into something I'd never seen before. So what if I did? What are you going to do about it? The casual cruelty in his voice hit me like a slap. This wasn't the man I'd married. Or maybe it was, and I'd just been too blind to see it. I talked to Stephanie, I said quietly. Marcus actually smiled. Good. Saves me the trouble of explaining. Steph's right, you know. This is just how things work. Sarah makes me happy in ways you never could. But I'm not going anywhere, I like our life together. You're a good wife when you're not being dramatic. When I'm not being dramatic? My voice rose despite my efforts to stay composed. Look, plenty of marriages work like this. You get security, I get what I need. Everyone wins. Unless you want to be one of those bitter divorced women living in some studio apartment, working double shifts just to pay rent. He said it like he was offering me a gift. Like I should be grateful for the opportunity to share my cheating husband with his girlfriend. Besides, he continued, settling onto the couch like this was just another casual conversation, it's not like you have anywhere to go. Your parents are across the country, you don't have any real friends outside of work, and let's be honest, what are you going to do, start over at 28? This is the best offer you're going to get. Each word was calculated to hurt, designed to make me feel small and powerless. And for a moment, it worked. I felt the crushing weight of my isolation, the way I'd let my friendships fade after marriage, how I'd poured everything into being the perfect wife. Then I remembered Stephanie's laughter. I remembered every family gathering where they'd made little inside jokes I didn't understand, every time they'd shared knowing looks across the dinner table. How long had they been laughing at me behind my back? You're right about one thing, I said finally. I have been naive. But not about what you think. Marcus raised an eyebrow, clearly expecting me to cave. Oh yeah? About what then? I've been naive about how ruthless I can be when someone pushes me too far. He laughed, but it sounded forced. What's that supposed to mean? I pulled out my phone and started scrolling through my photos, looking for something specific. Something I'd stumbled across 6 months ago and forgotten about until now. It means your sister should have been more careful about who she trusts with her secrets. His smug expression flickered, just for a second. What secrets? I found the photo I was looking for and smiled. The kind that would make your parents disown her. I watched Marcus's face change as the implications sank in. The cocky smirk disappeared, replaced by something that looked almost like fear. You're bluffing, he said, but his voice had lost its earlier confidence. Steph doesn't have any secrets that. The photos from her trip to Vegas last month? I interrupted, holding up my phone. The one she accidentally sent to our family group chat before quickly deleting them? You know, the ones where she's getting very cozy with a certain married woman while her fiancé David thinks she's at a work conference? Marcus went very still. You saved those? I screenshot them before she could delete them from everyone's phones. I thought it was sweet that she'd finally found someone who made her happy, even if the situation was complicated. I was actually planning to talk to her about it, offer some support. I laughed bitterly. Funny how things change. The color drained from his face completely now. We both knew what this meant. Marcus's parents weren't just conservative Christians, they were the kind of people who built their entire identity around their religious beliefs. They'd already cut off their eldest son for having a child out of wedlock. They disowned Marcus's cousin for getting a divorce, even though her husband had been abusive. And Stephanie? She was their golden child. The perfect daughter who went to church every Sunday, who was engaged to a nice Christian boy from their congregation, who worked at their family's real estate business and lived in the house they bought for her. She was set to inherit the majority of their multi-million-dollar company. But their golden child being in a relationship with another woman, especially a married one? That would shatter everything they believed about her. You wouldn't, Marcus said, but he didn't sound sure anymore. Your sister just told me that family loyalty means protecting cheaters and keeping quiet about affairs. She laughed at me, Marcus. She actually laughed when I asked if my husband was betraying me. She told me I should just accept being humiliated if I wanted to stay in the family. I stood up, feeling steadier than I had in hours. Well, I've decided I don't want to stay in this family. And if Stephanie thinks loyalty only flows one way, she's about to learn a very expensive lesson. Marcus jumped up, his hands raised like he was trying to calm a wild animal. Look, let's think about this rationally. You're upset, I get it. But ruining Stephanie's life isn't going to fix our marriage. Our marriage? I laughed, and it sounded eerily similar to Stephanie's cruel laughter from earlier. Marcus, our marriage died the moment you decided to screw another woman in a hotel room. I'm not trying to fix anything. I'm just returning the favor your sister gave me today. She was just trying to protect me. By humiliating me? By making me feel like an idiot for not knowing my husband was cheating? By telling me I should be grateful for the scraps of attention you throw my way between visits to your girlfriend? Marcus started pacing, running his hands through his hair. Okay, you're right. Steph shouldn't have said those things. But think about what you're doing here. If you send those photos to my parents, they'll destroy her. They'll take away everything, the house, the job, her inheritance. David will leave her. She'll have nothing. Sounds familiar, I said quietly. Isn't that exactly what you just threatened me with? Starting over with nothing? That's different. No, it's not. The only difference is that Stephanie has been living off mommy and daddy's money her whole life, while I actually have a career and skills. If anyone can rebuild from scratch, it's me, not your spoiled princess sister. My phone buzzed with a text message. It was from Stephanie herself. Hope you're feeling better about things. Family dinner is Sunday. Try not to be weird about the Marcus situation, okay? Face blowing a kiss. The casual cruelty of it, the assumption that I'd just roll over and accept my humiliation, made my decision crystal clear. I opened my contacts and scrolled to Marcus's mother's number. Don't, Marcus whispered. Please. My finger hovered over the call button. Give me one good reason why I should show your sister more loyalty than she showed me. Marcus stared at my phone like it was a loaded weapon pointed at his family's heart. The silence stretched between us, heavy with the weight of everything that was about to change. Because, he said finally, his voice barely above a whisper, if you do this, there's no going back. Not for any of us. There's already no going back, Marcus. You made sure of that when you decided Sarah was worth more than our marriage vows. He flinched at the mention of his girlfriend's name. Her name is Shannon. I don't care what her name is. But something about his correction, the gentle way he said it, twisted the knife deeper. He protected her name like it mattered. Like she mattered. How long have you been in love with her? The question seemed to catch him off guard. For a moment, his carefully constructed defenses crumbled, and I saw something that looked almost like guilt. It's not about love. It's complicated. Try me. I've got time. I settled back into my chair, phone still in hand, still ready to destroy his sister's perfect life. Explain to me how 8 months of lying to my face is complicated. Marcus started pacing again, and I realized he was stalling. But for what? That's when I heard it, the soft ding of the phone in the kitchen. Our landline. The one that barely ever rang except for. You called someone, I said, the realization hitting me like ice water. While I was talking, you texted someone. His face gave him away immediately. I didn't. Who did you warn, Marcus? Stephanie? Your parents? Before he could answer, I heard a car door slam in our driveway. Then another. My stomach dropped as I recognized the sound of multiple vehicles pulling up to our house. You bastard. I stood up, moving toward the window. You called in the cavalry. Through the blinds, I could see Stephanie's white BMW and behind it, the familiar bulk of his father's black SUV. Even in the darkness, I could make out figures moving toward our front door with purpose. They're here to do damage control, I breathed. You're all going to gang up on me, make me feel crazy, convince me to keep quiet. They're here because they care about you, Marcus said, but his voice lacked conviction. Because you're family. I laughed, sharp and bitter. Family? 20 minutes ago you told me I could accept sharing you or live in poverty. Now I'm family? The doorbell rang, followed immediately by aggressive knocking. Stephanie's voice carried through the door, sickeningly sweet but with an edge I'd never heard before. Open up. We need to talk. I looked down at my phone, my thumb still hovering over Mrs. Chen's contact. One call. One simple phone call and Stephanie's world would implode just like mine had. But now they were here, ready to pressure me, manipulate me, make me doubt myself. Last chance, I called toward the door. Walk away now, and maybe I'll consider keeping my mouth shut. Don't be ridiculous. Stephanie's voice was getting sharper. We're not leaving until we sort this out like adults. Like adults. As if laughing at my pain and telling me to accept my husband's affair was adult behavior. The knocking intensified, and I heard Marcus's father's deep voice, "Son, open this door." Now. I realized this was it. The moment that would define everything that came next. They thought they could intimidate me into silence, shame me into compliance, convince me that keeping their family's dirty secrets was somehow my responsibility. They thought wrong. I pressed call. The phone rang once. Twice. Through our front door, I could hear urgent whispers as the Chen family war council strategized their approach. Stephanie's voice carried the clearest, "She's just emotional. We can handle this." 3 rings. "Marcus, get your wife under control," came his father's gruff command. 4 rings. My heart pounded so hard I thought it might give me away. Then, hello? Mrs. Chen's voice was warm and familiar, the same tone she'd used when teaching me to make her famous dumplings last Christmas. Back when I thought I was truly part of their family. "Hi, Mrs. Chen. It's me." My voice came out steadier than I felt. "Oh, hello dear. How lovely to hear from you. Is everything all right?" "It's quite late." Behind me, Marcus was frantically waving his hands, his face a mask of pure panic. The knocking at our door had stopped. They were probably listening, trying to figure out who I was talking to. "Actually, I have something important to show you. Some photos that I think you and Mr. Chen need to see." "Photos?" Her voice sharpened with interest. "What kind of photos, dear?" I could practically feel Marcus's terror radiating across the room. "It's about Stephanie. I'm afraid I have some very concerning information about her lifestyle choices." The silence stretched long enough that I wondered if the call had dropped. Then Mrs. Chen spoke, her voice cooler now. "What exactly are you implying?" "I'm not implying anything. I have proof that your daughter has been unfaithful to David. With another woman. A married woman." Another pause. "Then, that's quite an accusation." "I have photographs, Mrs. Chen. From her Vegas trip. Very clear, very compromising photographs." I heard Marcus make a strangled sound behind me. The whispers outside our door had stopped completely. They were definitely listening now. "I see." Mrs. Chen's voice had transformed into something I'd never heard before. "Arctic. Dangerous. And why are you calling me with this information at nearly 10 o'clock at night?" Here was my moment. I could still back down, make up some excuse about being concerned for the family's reputation. Play the role of the dutiful daughter-in-law who just wanted what was best for everyone. Instead, I thought about Stephanie's laughter. About her telling me I was naive. About her suggestion that I should just accept being humiliated. Because earlier tonight, when I discovered that Marcus has been having an affair for 8 months, I called Stephanie hoping for support. Instead, she laughed at me. She told me everyone knew about his cheating, that she'd even made bets about how long it would take me to figure it out. She said family loyalty meant protecting Marcus, and that I should just accept sharing my husband if I wanted to stay in your family. Mrs. Chen's intake of breath was sharp enough to cut glass. She said what? She mocked me for working too much, suggested it was my fault Marcus needed to find attention elsewhere. Then she told me that men will be men, and I should be grateful for the nice life Marcus provides instead of throwing a tantrum. The temperature in Mrs. Chen's voice dropped another 10 degrees. "I see. And these photographs you mentioned?" "I'm sending them now." My fingers moved across my phone screen, attaching the images I'd screenshotted months ago. Images of Stephanie wrapped around another woman in what was clearly an intimate moment, both of them laughing and kissing like they didn't have a care in the world. "There," I said, hitting send. "You should have them in a moment." The pounding on our door resumed with renewed violence. Stephanie's voice was no longer sweet. "I know what you're doing in there. You're making a huge mistake." Mrs. Chen's phone must have chimed because I heard her sharp gasp. "Dear God. Mrs. Chen, I want you to know that I never intended to share these photos with anyone. I actually thought it was wonderful that Stephanie had found someone who made her happy. But after tonight, after the way she treated me in my moment of pain, I realized that loyalty should go both ways." "You're absolutely right," came the ice-cold reply. "It most certainly should." The line went dead, leaving me in eerie silence. Outside, Stephanie was still yelling, but her voice sounded different now. More desperate. "You don't understand what you're doing. You're ruining everything." Too late, I thought. Everything was already ruined. Marcus's phone started buzzing like an angry wasp. Then again. And again. "That's my mom," he whispered, staring at the screen like it might explode. "She's calling me." The pounding on our door had turned frantic now, and I could hear Stephanie's voice cracking with panic. "Marcus. Marcus. Answer your phone." But Marcus just stood there, frozen, watching his phone ring. On the 4th call, he finally looked up at me with something I'd never seen in his eyes before, genuine fear. "You have no idea what you've just done," he said quietly. "Enlighten me." Before he could answer, his phone started ringing again. This time, the caller ID made him go pale. "Dad. You should probably get that," I suggested, settling back into my chair. "Sounds important." Marcus's hand shook as he answered. "Dad, I." His father's voice was loud enough that I could hear every word through the phone, and what I heard made my blood run cold, not with fear, but with satisfaction. "Get home. Now." The older man's voice was pure ice and fury. "Your mother is, she's." I heard him take a shuddering breath. "Just get home. Both of you. And Marcus? Bring your wife." The line went dead. Outside, the yelling had stopped. I moved to the window and peered through the blinds to see Stephanie pressed against her car, phone clutched to her ear, her face illuminated by the screen's glow. Even from a distance, I could see she was crying. "Daddy, please," her voice carried across our yard. Let me explain. Those photos aren't what they look like. But apparently, Daddy wasn't interested in explanations because she pulled the phone away from her ear and stared at it like it had betrayed her. Then she did something I'd never seen competent, composed Stephanie do in the 3 years I'd known her. She threw her phone at the ground and screamed. Not a word, just a raw, animal sound of pure rage and panic. Then she spun around and marched toward our front door with murder in her eyes. Bang bang bang. Open this door right now. She was full on shrieking now. You psychotic bitch. You've destroyed everything. Marcus looked at me with something approaching awe. My parents, they've never. Dad's never hung up on me like that. Maybe because you've never given them a reason to, I said calmly. Until now. This isn't just about Stephanie anymore, he said, running his hands through his hair. If my parents think I knew about her situation and didn't tell them. Did you know? His silence was answer enough. Oh, Marcus, I laughed, and this time it was my turn to sound cruel. You all knew. You all knew about each other's secrets and kept them. Like your own little conspiracy against the parents who've been funding your lives. The banging intensified, and now I could hear Mr. Chen's voice too. Stephanie Marie Chen, get in your car and go home. Now. But Daddy, she's lying. She's manipulating those photos. I can prove. I said go home. Through the window, I watched Stephanie's father, a man I'd only ever seen be gentle and patient, grab his daughter by the arm and physically guide her toward her car. She was still protesting, still crying, but the fight had gone out of her. Marcus's phone buzzed with a text. His face went even wider as he read it. What now? I asked. My dad says. He swallowed hard. He says you and I need to be at their house in 30 minutes. He's called an emergency family meeting. A family meeting. How lovely. I stood up and smoothed down my scrubs. I should probably change into something more appropriate for watching your sister get disinherited. This isn't a joke. Marcus snapped. Do you understand what you've done? My parents don't just cut people off financially, they destroy them. Completely. Stephanie won't just lose her inheritance. They'll make sure she can't get a job anywhere in the city. They'll turn their entire social circle against her. They'll treat her exactly like she suggested you should treat me, I interrupted. Funny how that works. Outside, car door slammed and engine started. The Chin family cavalry was retreating, but this was just a tactical withdrawal. The real war was about to begin. And for the first time in 8 months, I was going to win something. I changed into my best black dress, the one Marcus had bought me for his company Christmas party where I'd smiled and played the perfect wife while he texted Shannon under the table. Tonight, it felt like armor. The drive to his parents' house was suffocating. Marcus gripped the steering wheel so tight his knuckles had gone white, and he kept muttering under his breath about fixing this and damage control. Every few minutes, his phone would buzz with increasingly frantic texts that he ignored. You know they're going to try to turn this around on you, right? He said as we pulled into the circular driveway of the Chin family mansion. They'll say you're vindictive, that you manipulated the situation to hurt innocent people. Innocent? I almost laughed. Marcus, your sister literally told me I should accept being cheated on. Your entire family has been laughing behind my back for months. Exactly who's innocent here? Stephanie made a mistake, but destroying her whole life is exactly what she told me I deserved if I didn't fall in line. I checked my lipstick in the mirror, surprised by how calm I looked. I'm just following her advice about how families should work. The house was blazing with lights in every window, like they were preparing for a siege. Before we even reached the front steps, the door flew open. Mrs. Chin stood there in her silk robe, her usually perfect hair disheveled, holding her phone like evidence in a murder trial. Behind her, I could see Mr. Chin pacing in the foyer, his face darker than a storm cloud. Get inside, she said without preamble. Both of you. The living room looked like a war room. Stephanie sat hunched on the white leather sofa, her designer dress wrinkled and her makeup streaked down her face. David, her fiancé, stood by the fireplace looking like he'd been hit by a truck. When he saw us enter, his eyes went straight to me with pure venom. There she is, he snarled. The vindictive little nurse who decided to blow up everyone's lives because she couldn't handle her own marriage problems. David, Mr. Chen's voice cut through the room like a blade. Sit down and be quiet. Mrs. Chen positioned herself in the center of the room, phone still in hand. I've called this meeting because it appears that several members of this family have been keeping secrets. Devastating secrets. She looked directly at me. I want to thank you for bringing Stephanie's activities to our attention. As painful as this information is, we needed to know. Stephanie's head snapped up. Mother, those photos are taken completely out of context. Rebecca was upset about Marcus and she wanted to hurt someone, so she. Are you saying the photos are fake? Mrs. Chen's voice could have frozen hellfire. No, but. Are you saying you haven't been having a relationship with a married woman behind David's back? Stephanie's mouth opened and closed like a fish. It's not that simple. It's very simple, actually. Mr. Chen stopped pacing and turned to face his daughter. You've been living a lie. You've been taking our money, living in our house, working in our business, planning a wedding to a man you've been betraying, all while sneaking around with someone else's wife. David made a strangled sound. 8 months. She told me it's been going on for 8 months. While we've been planning our wedding, picking out china patterns, meeting with the pastor for counseling sessions about Christian marriage. But Mrs. Chen wasn't done. Her gaze shifted to Marcus, and I saw him shrink back like he was 12 years old again. Now, as for you, son. Did you know about your sister's relationship? Marcus glanced desperately between his parents and Stephanie. It's not really my place to. Did you know? Mr. Chen's voice boomed through the room. Yes, Marcus whispered. The silence that followed felt like a moment before an earthquake. Mrs. Chen's face went through several expressions before settling on something I'd never seen before, complete disgust. So both of my children have been lying to me. Both of you have been deceiving this family while living off our support and generosity. She turned to me with something that might have been respect. It seems the only honest person in this room is the one who had the courage to tell the truth. Mrs. Chen's words hung in the air like a benediction, but I could feel the room's energy shifting. Stephanie had stopped crying and was staring at me with naked hatred. David looked like he was calculating something behind his shocked expression. And Marcus? Marcus was watching his parents with the careful attention of someone waiting for the other shoe to drop. However, Mrs. Chin continued, and my stomach clenched at that single word. We need to discuss the manner in which this information came to light. Here it comes, I thought. The part where they make me the villain. Mr. Chin stepped forward, his hands clasped behind his back like he was delivering a business presentation. Rebecca, we appreciate your honesty, but the timing of your revelation raises some questions about your motivations. My motivations? I kept my voice level, but I could feel the careful control I'd maintained all evening starting to slip. You discovered Marcus's affair and immediately weaponized private information to destroy Stephanie's life, David said, finding his voice. That's not seeking truth, that's revenge. Stephanie sat up straighter, sensing an opening. Exactly. She was hurt and angry, so she decided to hurt me back. This isn't about family loyalty or honesty, this is about a bitter woman lashing out. Marcus, who had been silent, suddenly spoke up. Maybe we should all take a step back here. Rebecca was emotional tonight, and... Emotional? I turned to stare at my husband. Is that what we're calling it when someone finds out their entire marriage is a lie? You're proving my point, Stephanie said, her tears magically drying up now that she sensed weakness in my position. Look how angry you are. You're not thinking clearly. Mrs. Chin nodded slowly. Perhaps Stephanie has a point. In your pain, you may have acted hastily. I felt the walls closing in as the Chin family dynamic I'd never fully understood began to reveal itself. They weren't actually angry about the lies or the betrayal, they were angry about being caught. And now they were going to circle the wagons and paint me as the unstable outsider who disrupted their carefully maintained facade. So let me understand this correctly, I said, standing up from my chair. Stephanie laughed at me for being cheated on, told me to accept it, and suggested I was too stupid to deserve better. But because I didn't just quietly absorb that abuse, I'm the problem? You could have come to us directly, Mr. Chin said. Instead of going nuclear. I tried that. I called your daughter for support, and she made it clear that protecting Marcus was more important than protecting me. She literally told me that family loyalty means keeping quiet about affairs. But now you're using that same logic to justify destroying her life, David interjected. How is that any different? The question hit harder than I expected because there was truth in it. I had been angry. I had wanted revenge. But looking around this room at their faces, Marcus's relief that the spotlight was shifting off him, Stephanie's growing confidence as she sensed victory, his parents' disapproval focusing on me instead of their children, I realized something crucial. They weren't going to learn anything from this. Stephanie would get a slap on the wrist, maybe lose some privileges temporarily. Marcus would promise to work on our marriage while probably still seeing Shannon. And I would be branded as the crazy wife who couldn't handle family business appropriately. You're right, I said quietly, and watched surprise flicker across their faces. I was angry. I did want revenge. But you know what the real difference is between Stephanie's loyalty and mine? I pulled out my phone and started scrolling through my photos again. She only had one secret to keep. Marcus went pale. Rebecca, don't. I have screenshots of Marcus's credit card statements showing regular payments to an apartment across town. The apartment he's been renting for Shannon for the past 3 months. Stephanie's mouth dropped open. Even she hadn't known about that level of commitment. I have text message chains between Marcus and Stephanie where they discuss how to keep his affairs from your family finances. Apparently, this isn't his first time cheating, just his first time getting caught. Mrs. Chen's face was transforming again, the brief sympathy for me evaporating as new implications sank in. And I have documentation showing that Marcus has been siphoning money from the family business account to fund his double life. Small amounts, nothing that would trigger an audit, but enough to pay for hotels, gifts, and rent for his girlfriend. The silence was deafening. So yes, I continued, I was angry when I called you about Stephanie. But now I'm just being thorough. Mr. Chen's face went through every shade of red in the spectrum before settling on an alarming purple. Marcus. Tell me she's lying. But Marcus had gone completely silent, staring at his hands like they held the secrets of the universe. His silence was more damning than any confession. The family business account? Mrs. Chen's voice was barely a whisper. Marcus, you've been stealing from us? It's not stealing, Marcus finally managed. I was going to pay it back. It's just temporary borrowing. Temporary borrowing to fund your affair? Mr. Chen's voice was rising to dangerous levels. To pay another woman's rent while living in a house we helped you buy? David, who had been so quick to defend Stephanie moments ago, took a step back from Marcus like infidelity might be contagious. Dude, that's seriously messed up. Don't you dare judge me, Marcus snapped, finally finding his voice. At least I wasn't planning a fake wedding while screwing around with someone else's wife. At least I wasn't embezzling from my parents. It's not embezzling. Enough. Mr. Chen's roar silenced the room. Both of you, sit down and shut up. But Stephanie wasn't done. She pointed an accusing finger at me, her perfectly manicured nail trembling with rage. This is all her fault. She's systematically destroying this family because she can't handle the fact that Marcus doesn't want her anymore. I'm sorry, I said, my voice dangerously calm. Did you just blame me for Marcus stealing money from your parents? You're twisting everything. Making it sound worse than it is. Families work through problems together, they don't air dirty laundry to hurt each other. Right. Like how you worked through Marcus's affair by checks notes, telling me to shut up and accept it? Mrs. Chen was scrolling through her phone, presumably looking at the evidence I'd sent. Her face grew stonier with each swipe. Rebecca, forward me everything you have about Marcus and the business account. Tonight. Mother, you can't seriously be, Stephanie started. I said tonight, Rebecca. Of course. I started forwarding files, feeling almost sorry for how quickly the tables had turned. Almost. Marcus finally looked up from his hands. Mom, I can explain everything. Shannon was in a bad situation, and I was just helping. You were helping another woman with our family's money while your wife worked double shifts at the hospital, Mr. Chin interrupted. Is that the explanation you want to go with? And how long has this been going on? Mrs. Chen asked, still scrolling through the evidence. Because these transactions go back much further than 8 months. The question hung in the air like a sword. Marcus's face told me everything I needed to know before he even opened his mouth. 18 months, he whispered. 18 months. Our entire marriage had been a lie for more than half its duration. While I'd been planning our future, he'd been planning his exit strategy with another woman. Oh my god, Stephanie breathed, and for the first time all night, she looked genuinely shocked. Marcus, you told me this just started recently. You said it was just a fling that got out of hand. You knew about this for 18 months and said nothing? Mrs. Chen's voice could have cut diamond. The room erupted into chaos. David was shouting at Stephanie about lies and betrayal. Mrs. Chen was yelling at Marcus about the money. Mr. Chen was bellowing at both his children about family honor and disgrace. And I sat in the middle of it all, watching the Chen family empire crumble from within, realizing that my revenge had accomplished something I never intended. I'd given them the truth. And the truth was destroying them all. The chaos in the room was intoxicating, but I could see Mrs. Chen's calculating mind working behind her fury. She raised her hand, and somehow, everyone fell silent. David, she said crisply, I think it's best if you go home. This is a family matter now. David looked between Stephanie and the door like a man choosing between two forms of torture. But our wedding. There is no wedding, Mrs. Chen said with finality. Not anymore. Stephanie let out a wail that would have been impressive if it weren't so pathetic. Mother, please. We can work this out. Rebecca is manipulating you. But Mrs. Chen wasn't finished. She turned to me with an expression I couldn't quite read. Rebecca, dear, I need you to understand something. You've given us valuable information tonight, and we're grateful. But. The butt hung in the air like a guillotine blade. But you've also declared war on this family. And the Chens don't lose wars. The temperature in the room dropped 10 degrees. Marcus looked up sharply, his face going pale. Even Stephanie stopped crying to stare at her mother. What's that supposed to mean? I asked, though I was starting to suspect I didn't want to know. Mrs. Chen smiled, and it was the coldest thing I'd ever seen. It means you've shown us exactly how ruthless you can be when crossed. Which tells us exactly how we need to handle you going forward. She pulled out her phone and started typing rapidly. You see, dear, you made one crucial mistake tonight. You assumed that exposing Stephanie and Marcus would somehow benefit you. But what you've actually done is shown us that you're willing to destroy this family from the inside. My stomach began to twist. I didn't destroy anything. I just revealed what was already broken. Semantics. Mrs. Chen finished typing and looked up at me. The fact remains that you're now in possession of damaging information about our family's private business affairs. Information that could be problematic if it fell into the wrong hands. Are you threatening me? Mr. Chen stepped forward, his earlier rage replaced by something much more dangerous, cold calculation. We're protecting our interests. Just like you protected yours tonight. My phone buzzed with an incoming email. Then another. And another. Mrs. Chen's smile widened. You might want to check those. With trembling fingers, I opened the first email. It was from the hospital's HR department, forwarding a formal complaint filed against me for inappropriate conduct with a patient's family member. The second was from my nursing supervisor, requesting an immediate meeting about concerning allegations regarding professional boundaries. The third was from my landlord, informing me that my lease agreement was being reviewed for possible violations. How? I started, but Mrs. Chen cut me off. You'd be amazed how quickly information travels when you have the right connections, dear. Hospital board members, property management companies, professional licensing boards, they're all just phone calls away when you've been part of this community as long as we have. Marcus was staring at his parents like he'd never seen them before. Mom, what did you do? What I should have done months ago. Protected this family. She turned back to me. Now, Rebecca, here's what's going to happen. You're going to delete every piece of information you have about our family business. You're going to sign a non-disclosure agreement. And you're going to quietly divorce my son without making any claims against family assets. And if I don't? Mrs. Chen's smile turned predatory. Then those complaints I just filed will be the least of your problems. Medical licenses can be revoked. Professional reputations can be destroyed. Future employment can become difficult to obtain. The room spun around me as the true scope of what I'd walked into became clear. I hadn't just declared war on Stephanie, I'd challenged a family that had the power and connections to destroy me completely. But as I looked around the room at their faces, Marcus's guilty relief, Stephanie's growing smugness, his parents' cold satisfaction, I realized something important. They'd just made their own crucial mistake. They'd shown me exactly how scared they were of what I knew. I stared at Mrs. Chen's predatory smile and felt something shift inside me. The fear that had been building in my chest transformed into something much more dangerous, clarity. You know what's funny about all this? I said, standing up slowly. You think you're protecting your family, but you just confirmed everything I suspected about how you operate. Mrs. Chen's smile flickered slightly. I'm not sure what you mean. I mean, you just proved that the Chen family has enough dirty laundry to warrant this level of panic. Normal families don't have emergency protocols for discrediting whistleblowers, Mrs. Chen. They don't have hospital board members on speed dial for character assassinations. I pulled out my phone and started scrolling through my contacts. Which makes me wonder, if you can destroy my nursing license with a phone call, what other professionals have you silenced over the years? The room went dead quiet. Marcus looked confused, but I could see understanding dawning in Mr. Chen's eyes. Rebecca, he said carefully, you're upset. You're not thinking clearly. Actually, I'm thinking more clearly than I have all night. I found the contact I was looking for, my friend Jessica from nursing school, who now worked as an investigative journalist. See, I was so focused on Stephanie's little secrets that I almost missed the bigger picture. But you just handed it to me. Mrs. Chen's face was turning an interesting shade of gray. What are you doing? I'm wondering how many other people you've silenced over the years. How many former employees, business partners, or family members have mysteriously found themselves unemployable after crossing the Chen family? I started typing a text to Jessica. I bet someone like my friend, she's an investigative reporter at the Tribune, would be very interested in that pattern. especially if it involves a prominent family using their influence to destroy people's careers. You're bluffing, Stephanie said, but her voice lacked conviction. Am I? Because I'm pretty sure retaliation against someone for reporting potential embezzlement is illegal. And threatening someone's professional license as punishment for exposing family secrets? That sounds like a very interesting story. Marcus finally found his voice. Rebecca, stop. You don't know what you're doing. I know exactly what I'm doing. Your parents just escalated this from family drama to potential criminal conspiracy. And unlike Stephanie's Instagram photos, this conversation involved explicit threats that I can prove. Mrs. Chen's phone started buzzing. She glanced at it and her face went white. Who did you just text? Everyone I could think of. My journalist friend, my union representative, a lawyer friend from college, my nursing supervisor, you know, the one you just had file a false complaint against me? She's going to be very interested to learn about your call. I was bluffing about most of it, but years of nursing had taught me how to project calm authority in crisis situations. And right now, the Chen family was definitely in crisis. Mr. Chen stepped toward me, his hands raised in what was probably meant to be a calming gesture. Now let's all just take a breath here. There's no need to involve outsiders in family business. But you already involved outsiders when you called my hospital. You made this bigger than family business the moment you tried to destroy my career. Stephanie looked panicked now. Daddy, make her stop. She's going to ruin everything. Everything's already ruined, Stephanie. I'm just deciding how much of the wreckage you get to walk away from. My phone started ringing. Jessica's name flashed on the screen, and I could see the exact moment Mrs. Chen realized I wasn't bluffing about having connections of my own. Don't answer that, she said sharply. I smiled and hit the answer button. Hi, Jess. Thanks for calling back so quickly. I have the most interesting story for you. Actually, Jess, let me call you back in a few minutes, I said into the phone, watching the Chen family's faces cycle through various stages of panic. I'm in the middle of something that just became very relevant to our conversation. I hung up and looked around the room. The power dynamic had shifted so dramatically I could practically feel it crackling in the air. Here's what I find fascinating, I continued, pacing slowly in front of the fireplace. 20 minutes ago, you were all ready to throw Stephanie under the bus for her affair. But the moment I threatened to expose how you operate as a family business, suddenly you're united again. Mrs. Chen's mask had completely slipped now. Gone was the disappointed mother act, replaced by something calculating and cold. You have no idea what you're playing with. Then explain it to me. Because from where I'm sitting, it looks like you've been using your money and connections to silence people for years. And Marcus's embezzlement? That's probably just the tip of the iceberg. I pulled up my banking app on my phone. You know what's interesting about having access to Marcus's accounts as his wife? All those mysterious transfers he's been making? They don't just go to Shannon's apartment. Marcus shot up from the couch. Rebecca, don't. There are payments to something called Chen Consulting Services. Regular monthly payments that don't match any legitimate business expense I can think of. I scrolled through the records I'd been too heartbroken to analyze properly before. What's Chen Consulting Services, Marcus? The silence was deafening. It's a shell company, I continued, pieces clicking into place. You've been washing money through fake consulting fees. That's not just embezzlement, that's tax fraud. Mr. Chen's face had gone from red to purple to a sickly gray. You don't understand the complexities of business accounting. I understand enough to know that paying your son's girlfriend's rent through a fake consulting company is fraud. My phone started buzzing with incoming texts. Jessica was clearly intrigued and doing some preliminary research. And I'm betting if someone looked closely at your books, they'd find a lot more creative accounting. Stephanie was looking between her parents with growing horror. Daddy? What is she talking about? But David, who had been quietly listening from the corner, suddenly spoke up. The renovation permits. Everyone turned to stare at him. The permits for your house renovations last year, Stephanie. You said your dad handled them, but they never went through the city. I checked because I wanted to see if we could use the same contractor. David's voice was gaining strength as pieces fell into place for him too. You said it was fine because your father had connections, but there were never any permits filed at all. Mrs. Chen's phone rang shrilly in the silence. She glanced at it and went even paler. That's our accountant. At 11 p.m.? I raised an eyebrow. That's either very dedicated service or damage control. Marcus was staring at his parents like he'd never seen them before. Mom, Dad, what exactly have you been doing with the business? But before anyone could answer, my phone rang again. This time it was Jessica, and when I answered, her voice was sharp with excitement. Rebecca, I did a quick search on the Chen family businesses. Girl, you need to be very careful. There are rumors that have been floating around the business community for years, but no one's ever been willing to go on record. What exactly did you stumble into? I looked around the room at the Chen family's stricken faces and smiled. I think I just found your smoking gun. The revelation hung in the air like a poison cloud. I could see the exact moment each Chen family member realized how deep the hole had become. Mrs. Chen was the first to recover, her businessman's instincts kicking in. Jessica, is it? She said loudly enough for my phone to pick up. This is Margaret Chen. I think there's been a misunderstanding about. Actually, Mrs. Chen, Jessica's voice crackled through the speaker, there's no misunderstanding. I've been investigating your family's business practices for months. I just needed someone with inside access to confirm what I suspected. My stomach dropped. What do you mean, months? Remember that story I did about city permits being fast-tracked for campaign donors? Your husband's family was all over those documents, Rebecca. I've been waiting for someone brave enough to come forward. The room exploded into chaos again, but this time it was different. This time, the Chen family was turning on each other. You said the permit thing was handled. Stephanie screamed at her father. You said it was legal. It is legal. Mr. Chen roared back. We make campaign contributions like every other business in this city. Contributing to campaigns is legal, Mr. Chen, Jessica's voice cut through their argument. But according to my records, you've been receiving permit approvals before applications were even filed. That's not contribution, that's corruption. Marcus was frantically scrolling through his phone. Oh God. Oh God, Rebecca, some of those consulting payments, they went to city council members' family businesses. Mrs. Chen lunged for my phone, trying to end the call, but I stepped back. Jessica, are you getting this? Every word. Rebecca, I need you to listen carefully. If what I think is happening is actually happening, you might be in real danger. These people don't just destroy careers, they make people disappear from public life entirely. Are you threatening my daughter-in-law? Mr. Chen's voice was deadly quiet. Actually, Mr. Chen, I think you already did that when you called her hospital. Which, by the way, Dr. Morrison from the medical board is a personal friend. He's very interested to hear about families pressuring medical institutions to file false complaints. The dominoes were falling faster than anyone could stop them. Mrs. Chen's phone was ringing constantly now, their accountant, their lawyer, and according to the caller ID I could glimpse, someone listed as City Hall emergency. Daddy, Stephanie's voice was small and terrified. What's going to happen to us? But before Mr. Chen could answer, there was a sound that made everyone freeze, car doors slamming outside. Multiple cars. David, who was closest to the window, peered through the curtains and went white as a sheet. Those are police cars. 3 of them. That's impossible, Mrs. Chen whispered. They can't work that fast. Jessica's voice came through my phone speaker like a death knell. Actually, Mrs. Chen, they can when they've already been building a case. Rebecca just gave them probable cause to execute search warrants they've had ready for weeks. The doorbell rang, followed by heavy knocking. A voice I didn't recognize called out, "Police. We have a warrant to search these premises." Marcus grabbed my arm, his face desperate. "Rebecca, please. Whatever you think my family did, there has to be another way to handle this. Think about what this means for everyone." I looked down at his hand on my arm, the same hand that had stroked another woman's hair while I worked double shifts to pay for our life together. "I did think about it, Marcus. I thought about it when Stephanie laughed at me. I thought about it when you told me I should be grateful for scraps. And I thought about it when your parents tried to destroy my career for telling the truth." The knocking intensified. "Open the door now or we'll enter by force." Mrs. Chen was staring at the door like it might burst into flames. "This is impossible. We have connections. We have lawyers. This doesn't happen to families like ours." "Maybe that's exactly the problem," I said quietly. The front door opened. Apparently Mr. Chen had decided cooperation was better than having his door broken down. Heavy footsteps filled the foyer, and voices discussing evidence collection and witness separation. "Ma'am," an officer appeared in the doorway, looking directly at me. "Are you Rebecca Chen?" "Yes. We're going to need to speak with you separately." "And ma'am? You might want to consider calling your own attorney." As they led me toward the kitchen for questioning, I caught sight of Stephanie's face one last time. She was no longer the confident, cruel woman who had laughed at my pain just a few hours ago. She looked exactly like what she was, a spoiled child whose entire world had just collapsed. And for the first time all night, I felt something that wasn't anger or satisfaction. I felt free. The police interview room at the Chen house was their pristine kitchen, but it felt like an interrogation chamber under the harsh overhead lights. Detective Morrison, no relation to the medical board friend Jessica had mentioned, sat across from me with a digital recorder between us. "Mrs. Chen, I need you to understand that you're not under arrest, but anything you say can be used in our ongoing investigation," she said, her voice professionally neutral. "You can have an attorney present if you'd like." "Do I need one?" I asked, surprised by how steady my voice sounded. "That depends on how much you know about your husband's financial activities and whether you participated in any of them." My stomach lurched. Participated? I had no idea about any business irregularities until tonight. Detective Morrison's expression didn't change, but she made a note. "Tell me about your access to family financial accounts." As I explained about discovering the credit card statements and the mysterious consulting payments, I could hear raised voices from other parts of the house. Through the kitchen window, I saw more cars arriving, unmarked vehicles and a van that looked like it belonged to a forensics team. "Mrs. Chen, did you knowingly benefit from any illegal activities?" The question hit me like a slap. "What do you mean?" "Your mortgage, car payments, lifestyle expenses. If your husband was using embezzled funds to support your household, that could make you an accessory." The room started spinning. I'd been so focused on exposing their secrets that I hadn't considered how deeply I might be implicated. Every dinner out, every vacation, every mortgage payment, had it all been funded by stolen money? "I work full-time as a nurse," I said weakly. "I thought our expenses came from our legitimate income." "But you never questioned how a junior account manager could afford a house in Riverside Heights?" I hadn't. God help me, I'd been so grateful to escape my tiny apartment that I'd never asked hard questions about our finances. Marcus had handled everything, said it was easier that way. Detective Morrison leaned forward. "Mrs. Chen, I'm going to be direct with you. Your journalist friend contacted us tonight, but we've been watching this family for months. We know about the permit schemes, the shell companies, and the money laundering. What we need to determine is who was actively involved and who was just present." "I was just present," I said quickly. "I swear, I had no idea." "Then help us prove that. What can you tell us about the Chen family's business operations that you observed directly?" For the next hour, I found myself dissecting 3 years of marriage, looking for signs I'd missed. Family dinners where conversation stopped when I entered the room. Phone calls that moved to other rooms when I was around. Marcus's vague explanations about work trips and client meetings. There were envelopes, I said suddenly, remembering. Cash envelopes that Marcus would bring home sometimes. He said it was bonus money that clients paid under the table to avoid taxes. I thought it was just, tips. Detective Morrison made another note. "How often?" "Monthly, maybe. Usually around the same time city council meetings were reported in the newspaper." The connection hit me like lightning. Oh God. They were paying bribes, weren't they? Before Detective Morrison could answer, there was a commotion from the living room. Shouting, and what sounded like someone being restrained. "That would be Mr. Chen," Detective Morrison said calmly, checking her watch. "He's not handling the search warrant well." Through the doorway, I caught a glimpse of officers carrying out boxes of documents and computer equipment. Mrs. Chen stood in the corner, her silk robe now wrinkled and stained with tears, watching her empire being dismantled piece by piece. Mrs. Chen, Detective Morrison's voice brought my attention back. I need to ask you something very important. Have you been threatened tonight? Has anyone in this family suggested they might retaliate against you for cooperating with us? I thought about Mrs. Chen's cold smile, her threats about my nursing license, the immediate calls to my hospital. Yes. They tried to destroy my career before you even arrived. Detective Morrison's expression hardened. Then you're going to need that attorney sooner than I thought. 6 months later, I stood in my new apartment, a modest one-bedroom that I could actually afford on my nursing salary, reading the newspaper headline that still felt surreal. Chen family empire crumbles, federal charges filed in corruption case. The article detailed everything, 23 counts of bribery, tax evasion, money laundering, and racketeering. Mr. Chen was looking at 15 years. Mrs. Chen had taken a plea deal for 8. Marcus, as the unwitting middleman who processed payments without understanding their full scope, got 3 years probation and community service. And Stephanie? She'd lost everything, just like her mother had threatened would happen to me. No inheritance, no job, no David. Last I heard, she was working at a coffee shop downtown and living in a studio apartment that cost more than half her paycheck. The irony wasn't lost on me. My phone rang, Jessica, calling with updates like she had every week since the story broke. Rebecca, you need to see the Times piece that's coming out tomorrow, she said, excitement bubbling in her voice. 3 more families have come forward about the Chen's intimidation tactics. Your testimony is opening floodgates. I should have felt triumphant. Instead, I mostly felt tired. How are you holding up? Jessica asked, her voice softening. I know this hasn't been easy. She was right. The divorce had been messy but swift. Marcus couldn't exactly fight for assets that were now frozen by federal investigators. The media attention had died down, but nursing supervisors still looked at me strangely sometimes. I'd become that nurse who brought down the Chen family, which was both better and worse than being that naive wife who got cheated on. I'm okay, I said, and surprisingly, I meant it. Different, but okay. Any regrets? I looked around my small apartment, my space, my rules, my honest life. No marble countertops or designer furniture, but everything here was real. Clean. You want to know the weirdest part? I said. If Stephanie had just been kind to me that night, if she'd shown even basic human decency when I called her crying, none of this would have happened. I would have quietly divorced Marcus and walked away. But she couldn't help herself, Jessica said. Power corrupts, even the small amount she thought she had over you. Through my window, I could see the city skyline where I'd once lived in ignorant bliss. Where I'd made lasagna every Sunday for a husband who was stealing money to pay his girlfriend's rent, in a family that viewed people like me as disposable. The prosecutor called, I said. Marcus wants to meet. To apologize, apparently. Will you? I thought about it seriously for the first time. Part of me was curious what he'd say, how he'd try to explain 3 years of lies. But a bigger part of me realized I didn't actually care anymore. No, I said finally. His apologies won't change anything. And I don't owe him closure. After hanging up, I poured myself a glass of wine, cheap wine that I'd bought with my own money, and sat on my second-hand couch. Tomorrow I'd go back to the hospital, back to saving lives and making an honest living. Stephanie had been wrong about so many things that night. She'd said I was naive, that I didn't understand how families worked, that I should be grateful for scraps. But she'd been right about one thing, family loyalty is everything. I just learned to choose my family better. And sometimes, the family you choose is just yourself.